Have you ever stopped to wonder why you were born as a human? Not an insect, not an animal, not trapped in suffering or endless confusion, but here, with the ability to reflect, to choose, to awaken. The Buddha said, to be born as a human being is rarer than a blind turtle surfacing once in 100 years, and placing its head exactly through a golden yolk floating on the vast ocean. That's how rare this life is. And yet, we forget. We rush through our days chasing things that don't last, forgetting that this body, this breath, this chance, is the result of thousands of lives lived before. You didn't arrive here by accident. There is a reason, and there is still time to remember what it is. Stay with me. Let's awaken to the sacred opportunity we've been given. You're here, listening, breathing, alive, and maybe, until now, you've never really thought about how incredible that is. Not just being alive, but being born as a human. A being with awareness, the capacity to think, to reflect, to choose compassion over cruelty, clarity over confusion, truth over illusion. You have that. But how often do we take it for granted? We wake up each day, often caught in the noise of routine, scrolling, rushing, chasing deadlines and dopamine hits, forgetting what a sacred, almost miraculous thing it is just to exist in this form. And not just any form. This human form. According to the Buddha, human life is not guaranteed. It's not some default state we return to again and again. No, to be born as a human is exceedingly rare. It is the result of powerful karmic seeds planted over countless lifetimes. Seeds of virtue, of restraint, of kindness, of mindfulness. The Buddha didn't speak in metaphors to comfort or flatter us. He spoke to wake us up. And one of the most startling things he ever said was this: suppose the whole earth were covered with water. And once every 100 years, a blind turtle rose to the surface. And there were a wooden yoke floating on the waves, with a hole in it. What are the chances that the blind turtle, surfacing only once a century, would poke its head through that hole? He paused, then added, rarer still is the chance of being born as a human being. This life you have, it's not random. It's not an accident. It's not something you're entitled to just because you were born in a certain country or family or species. It's the fruit of merit, of countless choices made well. Long before you had this name, this body, this voice. You may not remember any of it. Most of us don't. That's the nature of samsara, this cyclic existence. The spinning wheel of birth, death, and rebirth. Each life washes away the details of the last, leaving behind only karmic imprints, like footprints in wet clay. And yet, those imprints are powerful. They shape where you are born, how you live, what tendencies you carry, and whether or not you even have the chance to hear the Dharma, the teachings of awakening. The fact that you're here, listening to this, not just as a human, but as a human with the interest, the openness, and the karmic readiness to hear spiritual truth, that alone is astonishing. And it's not guaranteed to happen again. Most beings, according to Buddhist cosmology, are not reborn as humans. Most are reborn into lower realms, realms of intense suffering, confusion, or instinct-driven survival. The animal realm, for example, is governed by fear and desire. The hungry ghost realm is governed by insatiable craving. The hell realms are filled with pain and rage. In contrast, the human realm is uniquely balanced. It's painful enough to motivate spiritual seeking, but not so overwhelming that seeking becomes impossible. That's why the Buddha called human life the most favorable realm for awakening. Think about that. You're not just alive. You're in the realm most conducive to freedom from suffering. You're not trapped in instinct. You're not overwhelmed by ecstasy or agony. You're in the perfect middle. And yet, what do we usually do with that? We scroll. We binge. We complain. We numb. We wait for the weekend, the vacation, the promotion, the retirement, as if time is something we're guaranteed. But it's not. The Buddha said, "Of all footprints, that of the elephant is supreme. Of all contemplations, that of impermanence is supreme." Meaning, the most powerful meditation you can engage in is to reflect on the fleeting nature of this life. This breath, this chance. Because when you see life as precious, you start to treat it differently. You become more mindful of your thoughts, more careful with your speech, more intentional in your actions. You stop wasting time on what doesn't matter, and start aligning yourself with what does: truth, compassion, presence. You might even start to ask, why am I here? Not in some abstract philosophical sense, but in a very real karmic sense. What is it that brought me to this moment? And more importantly, what will I do with it? This life is not just a resting stop. It's not a place to drift unconsciously until death comes knocking. It's a rare opportunity to shape your future, your karma, your next rebirth, your path to freedom. And that's not meant to be a burden. It's a blessing. You're not powerless. You have the capacity to shape your life, right now. Every choice you make plants a seed. And every seed ripens. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, the law of cause and effect operates just the same. Kindness leads to peace. Greed leads to unrest. Mindfulness leads to clarity. Ignorance leads to suffering. This isn't superstition. It's observable. You can see it in your own life. When you act from love, you feel lighter. When you cling or lash out, you feel heavy. These are not abstract principles. They're lived realities. And human life gives you the awareness to notice them. So why waste that? Why live like this will last forever, when deep down, we all know it won't? Why chase what never satisfies, when peace is always just a breath away? Why numb yourself, when you could awaken? It's true. Life can be hard. It's full of uncertainty, loss, and suffering. But even that is part of the path. Pain, when met with wisdom, becomes compassion. Confusion, when met with mindfulness, becomes insight. And you're not here by mistake. The universe, your karma, your past actions, all converged to place you exactly where you are. In a human body. With a human mind, hearing words that might just awaken something ancient and wise within you. So don't fall asleep again. You've come too far, lived too many lives, endured too much to get here. Don't waste this one, even now. As you sit here, listening, breathing, wondering, your life is speaking to you, whispering, remember. Remember why you came. Remember what matters. Remember who you are beneath all the noise. And that remembrance? It starts with seeing this life, not as ordinary, not as random, but as precious beyond words. Now that we've begun to recognize how precious this human life is, we need to understand why it's so rare. Not just rare statistically, but cosmically rare. To do that, we have to step back and look at the bigger picture. The unseen reality that the Buddha described so vividly. The world you see isn't the only world that exists. This life, as a human being walking the earth, isn't the only type of life you could have. According to Buddhist teachings, existence spans many realms, some higher, some lower. All of them are part of the wheel of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth that every sentient being is caught in until they awaken. Imagine this wheel as a giant cosmic mandala, constantly spinning. At the center are the three poisons: ignorance, craving, and aversion, driving the motion of the wheel. And around the wheel are 6 realms of rebirth: gods, demigods, humans, animals, hungry ghosts, and hell beings. The human realm is just one spoke on that wheel. And it is the narrowest, most fragile one. Most beings, according to the Buddha, are not reborn as humans. They're reborn in lower realms, where suffering is dominant, or in higher realms, where pleasure is so overwhelming that there is no motivation to seek truth. Neither of those options are ideal for spiritual growth. Only in the human realm is there the perfect blend of joy and suffering, enough ease to reflect, enough pain to seek liberation. But why is it so difficult to be born as a human? Think about what it takes to get here. To be reborn as a human requires not just random karma, but specific kinds of karma. Karma rooted in moral conduct, generosity, kindness, self-discipline. A being must have lived previous lives where they chose restraint over indulgence, compassion over cruelty, mindfulness over ignorance. These choices are not easy, especially in realms where awareness is dimmed or non-existent. Animals don't contemplate the meaning of life. Hungry ghosts are consumed by endless desire. Hell beings are trapped in pain and rage. Even celestial gods, though they experience bliss, often fall into delusion and complacency. Only humans stand at the intersection of clarity and challenge. That's why the Buddha called this human birth the ship that crosses the ocean of suffering. A ship doesn't guarantee arrival. You still have to sail it. You still have to steer. But without the ship, you're just drowning in the waves of samsara. And most beings are drowning. The ocean of samsara is vast. The number of beings in the lower realms is beyond calculation. Think of the number of ants in the world. Now add every mosquito, fish, worm, and unseen organism. Add the hungry ghosts the eyes cannot see. The tortured beings of the hells. These are not metaphors, they're possibilities. Unseen dimensions governed by karma. To be born human is like surfacing through all that, just once. Like that blind turtle rising in the ocean, trying to find that tiny golden ring. It's not just unlikely, it's almost unimaginable. And yet, here you are. Do you feel it now? The wonder? The gratitude? The responsibility? Because it is a responsibility. Not in the sense of guilt or pressure, but in the sense of opportunity. When something is rare, we naturally protect it. When something is precious, we don't waste it. And when something is meaningful, we try to understand its purpose. What if your life is not just for comfort or entertainment? What if it's for awakening? That possibility alone is what makes the human realm unique. Other beings may live longer. They may suffer less, but they don't have the same chance to break free. You do, right now. Every teaching of the Buddha points to this. The Dharma was spoken for humans, for those who can hear, reflect, and practice. And the practice isn't just for monks or mystics. It's for anyone who sees through the illusion of permanence and wants to know what's real. The fact that you're even drawn to this message suggests something. Something ancient and deep in you is remembering. You may not recall your past lives, but your karma does. It brought you here, and that means you've already made noble choices. You've already taken steps, perhaps thousands of years ago, toward freedom. Now the path continues, but the wheel keeps spinning. And unless we're awake, we're spun along with it. That's the danger of forgetting how rare this life is. We fall into complacency. We act as if we'll always be human, always have time, always get another chance. But the wheel doesn't promise that. If you don't steer this life with awareness, the karma that ripens next might not lead you here again. And that's where urgency comes in, not panic, but sacred urgency. The kind that says, don't wait. Use this life. So, how do we use this life? It begins with remembrance. We remember that we are more than our roles, our careers, our opinions, and our worries. We are beings on a journey through many lives, shaped by the seeds we plant with our thoughts, words, and actions. That remembrance is not just spiritual, it's practical. When you live with awareness of karma, you start to choose differently. You choose patience instead of reactivity. You choose kindness when it would be easier to ignore. You choose truth, even when it's uncomfortable. These small shifts accumulate. They shape not only your future lives, but this very moment. And this moment is where awakening begins. Buddhist practice doesn't require that you believe in other realms or past lives. It simply invites you to notice cause and effect, to observe your mind, to see how suffering arises, and how it can end. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you begin to cherish this human life, you no longer live in fear of losing it. You begin to live fully, with presence and grace. You stop clinging to pleasure and avoiding pain. You start showing up, for yourself, for others, for reality. You begin to realize that this life is not separate from the sacred. It is sacred. Every breath you take is a doorway back to the present. Every moment of mindfulness is a step off the wheel of samsara. Every act of compassion is a refusal to fall back into ignorance. And every time you remember how rare this life is, you wake up a little more. You don't have to renounce the world to live this way. You just have to stop sleepwalking through it. The Buddha didn't promise immortality. He promised freedom. And that freedom begins with recognizing the rarity of your birth. The fact that you're here, listening, means the path is open to you. The Dharma has reached you. Now it's your turn to walk it. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming conscious, to see your life not as a mistake, but as a message, not as random, but as intentional, and to ask, what do I want to make of it? Not for ego, not for fame, but for peace, for clarity, for liberation. Because in the end, nothing else endures. Your body will change, your possessions will fade, your name will be forgotten. But the quality of your heart, the strength of your awareness, that's what shapes what comes next. This is not your first life, and it may not be your last, but it is your now. And that now is more rare, more sacred, more powerful than you've ever imagined. So don't waste it. Don't wait until old age or illness or regret. Begin now, right where you are, with the breath you're breathing and the mind you're training. Remember the blind turtle, remember the golden ring, and then look in the mirror and realize, you already found it. You are that rare, you are that precious. And now, what will you do with it? If being born human is so rare, and if it's the result of karma, then naturally, the next question arises. What kind of karma leads to this? What seeds did we once plant to receive this gift? And what can we do to protect it now? The answer lies in understanding the nature of karma itself. Karma, in Buddhism, doesn't mean fate. It means action, intentional action. And every action leaves an imprint. Not because some god is keeping score, but because the universe works on cause and effect. Plant a seed, and something will grow. What you planted in previous lives, the intentions behind your thoughts, words, and deeds, shaped where you are now. That includes the body you inhabit, the mind you've developed, and the conditions that surround you. So if you were born as a human, it means that somewhere in your distant past, you lived with a certain degree of virtue. You practiced generosity, you showed restraint, you protected life, you listened to wisdom, you cultivated mindfulness. These choices were not lost, they became the karmic momentum that brought you here. Let that sink in. You're here now not just because of biology, or luck, or chance. You're here because you lived well before. Maybe not perfectly, but with enough clarity to steer your consciousness toward this rare opportunity. And even more astonishing, you found the Dharma. That's even rarer than being born human. The teachings of the Buddha are like a lantern in the darkness of samsara. But not everyone sees it. Many pass by without noticing. Some even fear the light. For you to hear this now, with a mind open enough to consider it, that's a further sign of deep karmic ripening. So the question is, will you continue this momentum? Because karma doesn't stop. It's not just about the past. It's unfolding right now. Every moment of attention you bring to your life shapes the next moment. Every time you act from love instead of fear, you create conditions for peace. Every time you choose mindfulness over distraction, you lay a path toward awakening. Human life, then, is not just the fruit of good karma, it's also fertile ground for planting more. And not just for yourself. Your actions ripple outward, they affect others. Your kindness can soften someone's anger. Your patience can inspire someone's strength. Your courage can help another find their voice. That's the power of this form. The human form carries agency, influence, responsibility. But that power can also go in the other direction. If we're not mindful, we can misuse our karma. We can plant seeds of suffering through greed, hatred, and delusion, and those seeds, too, will ripen, not because we're being punished, but because causes always have consequences. That's why the Buddha emphasized right view as the starting point of the path. To see reality clearly, to understand karma deeply, not as dogma, but as an invitation to live with awareness. If you understand that your thoughts matter, you become more careful with them. If you understand that your speech leaves marks, you begin to speak with more integrity. If you know your actions shape entire lifetimes, you stop living on autopilot. And suddenly, this moment isn't small anymore. It's enormous. Every gesture matters. Every choice is sacred. Even when you stumble, even when you forget, the path is still beneath your feet. Because the most important karmic choice is always the next one. Not where you've been, but where you go from here. Let's say you're holding onto resentment. It burns inside you. It colors your decisions. It clouds your mind. That's karma. Not in the sense of punishment, but in the sense of momentum. It shapes how you show up in your life. But the moment you see it, really see it, and choose to meet it with compassion, something shifts. You've interrupted the pattern. You've planted a new seed. That's the miracle of awareness. It's never too late to change your karma. Because you're human, you have the power to reflect, to choose, to redirect the flow of your own becoming. No other realm offers this level of freedom. Not even the heavens. Heavenly beings, according to the Buddha, live in bliss, but they're often intoxicated by pleasure. They don't see the need for practice. So when their merit runs out, they fall, unprepared and unaware. But you can see suffering and still choose clarity. You can face impermanence and still open your heart. You can witness death and not be destroyed by it, but awaken through it. That's the brilliance of the human realm. And that's why your karma brought you here. You've likely had moments in your life when something in you felt ancient. A sense of déjà vu. A dream that lingered longer than it should. A feeling that something about all this, the search for meaning, the call towards stillness, wasn't new. It was a remembering. These glimpses are not accidents. They are echoes. Reminders that you've walked this path before. And even if you can't see where it leads, you know it's worth walking. So how do you continue building karma that leads to clarity, peace, and freedom? The Buddha laid out a path: ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom. In simple terms, that means living with integrity, training your mind, and seeing clearly. It begins with the basics: don't harm, don't lie, don't steal, don't intoxicate your mind, don't misuse sexuality. These precepts aren't commandments, they're guardrails. They protect the clarity of your consciousness. They create the conditions for deeper insight. Then comes the training of the mind: mindfulness, concentration, loving kindness. These aren't just practices for monks in caves. They're daily disciplines for anyone who wants to live deliberately, anyone who wants to plant good seeds, anyone who doesn't want to sleepwalk through this precious life. And finally, wisdom. The deep seeing into the nature of reality. That everything is impermanent. That nothing has a fixed, independent self. That clinging causes suffering. And that freedom is possible. You don't have to grasp all of that at once. Even a small taste of insight can change your life. Like realizing that anger, when observed instead of acted upon, loses its grip. Or noticing that craving, when met with compassion, begins to dissolve. Or sensing that beneath all your roles and worries, There's a stillness that was never born and will never die. This is the heart of the Dharma. And this is what your human life makes possible. Not just understanding these truths intellectually, but living them. Living them when you're stuck in traffic. Living them when you're arguing with your partner. Living them when you're sitting with a dying loved one. Every moment is a chance to remember. To choose wisely. To plant seeds of awakening. The Buddha didn't say we had to be perfect. He said we had to be mindful. And that mindfulness begins with gratitude. Gratitude for this body, fragile as it is. Gratitude for this breath, fleeting as it is. Gratitude for this moment, brief as it is. Because all of it is rare. Not just rare in the sense of statistics, but rare in the sense of potential. Human life is a launching point, a stepping stone to liberation. But you must use it. You must practice now, while you can, before the window closes, before the wheel turns again. We don't know where we'll go next. That's the nature of samsara. But what you do now influences what comes next. And if you remember that, deeply and sincerely, you begin to live not just for this life, but for every life to come. You begin to live as if every thought matters. Because it does. You begin to live as if every action matters. Because it does. You begin to live as if this moment, this very breath, is sacred. Because it is. And then, slowly, gently, almost imperceptibly, you begin to awaken. Up until now, we've reflected on the incredible rarity of being born human, and the powerful karma that brought us here. But even though we've earned this body and this mind, the truth is, we can still waste it. And that may be the greatest danger of all, not being reborn as a hungry ghost or in some hellish realm, but simply living this life as if it meant nothing. This is where the teachings of the Buddha become most urgent. Because it's not enough to just know that life is rare. We have to remember it, live it, protect it. But here's the thing, we forget. We forget in the small ways, by chasing every distraction, numbing ourselves with entertainment, drowning in endless stimulation, and we forget in the deeper ways, by clinging to what doesn't last, turning away from pain, or losing ourselves in the illusion of control. We spend so much of this precious life not being here. The Buddha called this state, moha, delusion. It's not evil. It's not some monster in the closet. It's just the mind, lost, wandering, distracted, caught in the trance of thinking, wanting, fearing, and in that trance, we miss the miracle of being alive. The tragedy isn't that we don't have time. It's that we don't feel time. We assume we'll have more. We live as if tomorrow is guaranteed, as if we can always begin again later. But later isn't promised, and in the moments we're not paying attention, life slips by, not in dramatic tragedies, but in 1,000 tiny unnoticed hours. You don't have to die to leave this life. You just have to stop showing up for it. And that's the risk. The Buddha taught that this human life is like dew on the grass, beautiful, sparkling in the morning sun and gone by afternoon. But rather than despair at that truth, he offered it as a gateway. He said, of all the footprints, that of the elephant is supreme, of all contemplations. That of impermanence is supreme. Why? Because when we reflect on impermanence, not in a fearful way, but with quiet clarity, we stop wasting time. We start living on purpose. We stop investing in what can't last, and start planting seeds that endure. That shift is everything. And yet, it's easy to avoid, especially in the modern world. We live in a culture of accumulation. More success, more comfort, more followers, more stimulation, more of everything. But more doesn't satisfy the heart. It just distracts the mind. And so we run. We run from silence. We run from stillness. We run from the truth of our own mortality. But what if we stopped? What if, instead of running from impermanence, we bowed to it? What if we made peace with the fact that we will die, and used that knowledge not to feel despair, but to wake up? To recognize that every moment you spend in anger is a moment you're not loving. That every hour lost in distraction is an hour not lived. That every day spent clinging to things that fade is a day not spent cultivating what frees you. What if we stopped measuring our lives by how much we achieve, and started measuring by how clearly we see, how deeply we care, how awake we become? These are not abstract questions. These are the questions of the Dharma. They're the ones that shake you loose from the dream of habit and bring you face to face with what actually matters. And when you face that truth, you begin to live differently. You start simplifying. You stop trying to control what's beyond your power. You stop arguing with reality. You begin to let go, not of responsibilities or relationships, but of delusions, of expectations, of false identities. You begin to practice, not to get somewhere else, but to be here more fully. And being here is the doorway to freedom. Because freedom doesn't start in some monastery or retreat. It starts in this moment. In your own heart. The moment you decide to stop wasting your life. To stop wasting your life doesn't mean doing something dramatic. You don't have to quit your job, leave your family, or become a monk. You just have to start paying attention. Really pay attention. To your breath, to your thoughts, to the way your body tenses when you feel fear, or how your voice changes when you speak from anger, to the way you rush through meals, or how you check your phone the moment silence arrives. These moments, small as they are, hold the doorway to awakening. If you can see clearly in these, you can see clearly in anything. And that clarity is what transforms karma. The Buddha said that even a single moment of awareness can cut through lifetimes of confusion. That's how powerful your mind is. That's how precious this life is. It gives you the chance to create new karma with every breath. But to do that, you have to care. You have to care about your actions. Care about your mind. Care about the state of your heart. Caring is the beginning of the path. Not in a sentimental way. In a fierce way. In a courageous way. To care means to wake up to what you're doing. How you're living. Who you're becoming. It means asking, what am I creating with this moment? It means turning off autopilot and steering the wheel of your own life with presence. Because if you don't steer it, your habits will. Your conditioning will. Your wounds will. And that's the danger. Not that something evil will come and destroy your life, but that you'll live it half asleep, guided by fear, distraction, and noise. That's the true tragedy. And yet, the good news is, every moment offers a reset. Right now, you can choose differently. You can choose to pause, to breathe, to return to your body. You can choose to notice, what am I thinking? Is it kind? Is it true? You can choose to soften, to let go of what doesn't serve, to meet your life with compassion instead of resistance. And you can do that again and again and again. That's the path. It's not found in some exotic place. It's found in the way you respond to what's already here. When someone cuts you off in traffic, how do you respond? When someone criticizes you, how do you respond? When fear arises, how do you respond? These are the real teachings. And this human life gives you the power to choose your response. That's what makes it so rare. That's what makes it so beautiful. It's not just that we can wake up, it's that we know we can. There is a knowing in you, a quiet awareness, that's always been there. It watches without judgment. It sees the rising and falling of thoughts, the changing of emotions, the impermanence of everything. That awareness is your refuge. And every time you return to it, you return to the truth. That nothing lasts. That everything is connected. That the only thing that matters is how you meet this life. So meet it with love. Meet it with honesty. Meet it with reverence. Because this life, this fleeting, fragile, karmically rare human life, isn't yours to possess. It's yours to honor. And the best way to honor it? Wake up to it. Now. There's a quiet truth that many of us carry, even if we rarely speak it aloud. beneath all the distractions and demands of daily life. We sense that we're meant for something more. Not more success, not more possessions, but more depth, more truth, more inner freedom. And yet, how often do we honor that feeling? In this fast-paced world, it's so easy to stay on the surface, to live in reaction, to be pulled by the next email, the next headline, the next craving. But deep down, something in us knows we weren't born just to survive. We weren't given this rare human life just to repeat the same unconscious patterns again and again. The Buddha's teachings invite us to pause, to question the momentum of our lives, to stop and look, not with judgment, but with honesty. What are we doing with this precious life? Are we living in alignment with the deeper values we hold? Are we planting seeds that lead to peace? Or are we just reacting to the world around us? Are we awake? These aren't questions to scare us. They're questions to awaken us. And when we ask them sincerely, something begins to shift. We start to remember. We begin to recall that this life is not ordinary. It's a field of karma in motion. A moment-by-moment unfolding of causes and effects. Every decision you make, how you speak, how you act, how you treat yourself and others, carries the energy of intention. And that energy doesn't vanish. It ripples out. It becomes your future. When you understand this deeply, life takes on a new meaning. It stops being random. It becomes sacred. The Buddha often spoke of 4 conditions that make a human rebirth truly precious. Being born as a human being, having access to the Dharma, having the ability to practice it, and having the intention to do so. Think about that for a moment. You already have the first 3. You're human. You're hearing the Dharma. You have the mental clarity to understand it. Now the only question is, will you practice? And practice doesn't mean something mystical or out of reach. It means coming back to yourself, being fully present in your life, watching your mind with gentleness, responding with compassion, remembering, again and again, that your time here is limited, and therefore deeply valuable. Even the most mundane moments can become part of your path. Washing the dishes, talking with a loved one, sitting in traffic, all of it can be practice if you bring awareness to it. Because every moment is a karmic crossroad. Every breath offers you a choice to move toward wisdom or delusion, toward kindness or selfishness, toward awakening or sleep. The beauty of being human is that we have that choice. The tragedy is that we so often forget we do. But the Dharma is here to remind us. And the more we hear it, reflect on it, and apply it, the stronger our remembrance becomes. We begin to live not from habit, but from presence, not from fear, but from love, not from confusion, but from clarity. And that's how the momentum of our karma begins to shift. That's how we create a life that supports not just temporary happiness, but lasting peace. That's how we honor the karmic rarity of our human birth, not just by being alive, but by living deeply awake. Living awake doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean never getting angry, never feeling fear, never falling into distraction. It means being willing to return, again and again, to your breath, to your body, to your deeper intention. The Buddha taught that the path to awakening is a gradual one. It unfolds over time. It takes patience. It takes humility. It takes trust. Trust that your efforts matter. Trust that your small acts of mindfulness, right now, today, are shaping your future. Trust that you are not too far gone, that you haven't missed your chance. That awakening is always possible, because the present moment is always available. That's the power of this human life. Unlike other realms, where beings are overwhelmed by either pain or pleasure, the human realm gives you space. Space to pause, space to reflect, space to choose. But that space won't last forever. Your body will age, your mind will fade, death will come, suddenly, or slowly, but it will come. And when it does, The only thing that will travel with you is your karma. Not your bank account, not your titles, not your belongings, only the imprints of your mind, your heart, your actions. So what are you taking with you? Are you growing more patient? More generous? More honest? Are you letting go of what doesn't serve, old resentments, outdated beliefs, rigid identities? Are you developing qualities that transcend this life? Because that's what practice is for. It's not about escaping the world. It's about engaging with it fully, but not being trapped by it. It's about learning how to meet joy without clinging, pain without resistance, and death without fear. And that kind of wisdom doesn't come from books alone. It comes from living the teachings, from seeing your own mind clearly, from falling down and getting back up, from choosing love when it would be easier to shut down. Every moment you do that, you honor the karma that brought you here. You protect the rarity of your human life. You become a refuge for yourself and for others. And in doing so, you begin to rewrite your destiny, not in some cosmic, abstract sense, but in the most intimate way, breath by breath, thought by thought, step by step. You begin to walk the path of liberation, not as a concept, as a lived reality. That's why this human life matters so much. That's why it's not just a gift, but a responsibility. A responsibility not to be perfect, but to be present, to live with awareness, to act with compassion, to speak with integrity, to think with clarity, to love with depth, and to die with peace. Because death is not the end. It's a transition, and the way we meet it depends entirely on how we've lived. So live in such a way that, when your time comes, you can let go without regret. Live in such a way that your very life becomes a teaching. Live in such a way that your final breath is not an end, but a doorway. And the steps you take in this life become the path that leads you beyond it. That is the power of being human. That is why you are here. That is why this moment matters. Now more than ever, you've made it this far on the journey. You've listened deeply to the truth that your life is not an accident, but the result of powerful karmic momentum. You've remembered that every breath, every choice, every act of compassion is an offering not only to this life, but to what comes after. And now, it's time to ask one of the most important questions of all. What will you do with this rare life? Not as a hypothetical, not as a dream for someday, but right now, because now is all you ever have. In the teachings of the Buddha, there is a phrase that recurs often: urgency born of insight. It's not urgency in the modern, frantic sense, not anxiety or rush, but a sacred kind of urgency. A recognition that time is short, and that wasting this life is a tragedy far greater than dying. It's one thing to live, it's another to awaken. And the difference lies not in what you do, but in how you do it. With presence, with awareness, with purpose. So what would it look like to truly live this way? To begin, it means turning inward, not as an escape, but as a return. Returning to your own mind, your own heart, your own intentions. Because that's where all karma begins. That's where every future is born. We often search outside ourselves for meaning. In relationships, in accomplishments, in identity. But the Dharma reminds us that everything we need is already here. The peace we long for isn't hidden in some distant place. It's in how we relate to this very moment. Are we resisting? Or are we accepting? Are we clinging? Or are we letting go? Are we asleep? Or are we aware? And when we choose awareness, even for a single breath, we step out of the cycle of mindless becoming. We step into our true inheritance as human beings, the ability to reflect, to choose, to shape the path of our own becoming. This is the kind of freedom the Buddha spoke of, not freedom from life, but freedom in life, freedom from compulsion, from ignorance, from the mechanical momentum of karma. And yet, that freedom isn't automatic. It must be cultivated. Which is why practice matters. You don't need to live in a monastery. You don't need to renounce the world, but you do need to engage the world from a different center, a deeper place. That begins with remembering that your time is finite, that death is certain, and the time of death is uncertain. Not to create fear, but to inspire focus. Because when you live with that remembrance, something shifts. You stop postponing your real life. You stop assuming you'll have more time to make things right, to wake up, to practice love. You start now. You begin to ask, what is truly worth my attention? You begin to choose silence over noise, simplicity over distraction, meaning over habit. And in those choices, moment by moment, the quality of your karma begins to change. Not because you're following rules, but because you're listening to your own clarity. The Dharma isn't about blind obedience. It's about deep listening. Listening to the voice within you that already knows the way. That voice within, the one that seeks truth, peace, and liberation, is not new. It didn't begin in this lifetime. It has been whispering across lifetimes. It's the echo of the noble choices you've made before. The reason you were born human. The reason you're hearing these words now. And the more you listen to that voice, the louder it becomes. Until one day, it's no longer a whisper. It's a calling. And when you feel that calling, don't ignore it. Don't let the noise of the world drown it out. That calling is your compass. Follow it. Follow it when it leads you to stillness. Even when others keep rushing. Follow it when it asks you to forgive. Even when you feel hurt. Follow it when it leads you toward honesty. Even when lies seem easier. Because every time you follow that voice, you align with the deeper current of your karma. The current that leads not just to a better life, but to awakening itself. And that awakening doesn't look like perfection. It looks like presence. It looks like showing up fully. Even when things are hard. It looks like remembering what matters. Even when the world is pulling you in every direction. It looks like choosing love. Again and again, even in the face of loss. And that's how you transform this life, not by becoming someone else, but by becoming fully yourself. The self that is awake. The self that sees through illusion. The self that remembers. This life is not by chance. It was earned. It was given. And it can be used to free not just yourself, but all beings. Because you're not alone on this path. We are all bound together in this great wheel of becoming. And every step you take toward awakening helps the whole wheel move toward light. Your kindness ripples out. Your awareness creates space. Your peace becomes a refuge for others. That's the sacred responsibility of being human. Not just to wake up, but to help others wake up, too. And you don't need to preach. You don't need to convert. You only need to live your truth. To embody the Dharma. Because the most powerful teachings are not spoken, they are lived. In how you treat a stranger. In how you care for the earth. In how you meet your own suffering with tenderness. This is how the Dharma lives on, not in temples alone, but in human hearts, in yours. And the more you live this way, the more natural it becomes. Until your life itself becomes the path. Until your presence becomes the teaching. Until your breath becomes a prayer. And your every step becomes a blessing. So let this be your vow. To remember the rarity of your human life. To use it well. To walk with awareness. To love without condition. To die without regret. And to live each day as if it were your last, not with fear, but with reverence. Because one day, it will be. And when that moment comes, may you look back and smile. May you leave this world with a light heart. And may the karma of this life carry you forward, not back into forgetfulness, but toward full and lasting awakening. This is what your life is for. This is why you're here. Don't forget it. Not now. Not ever. If you've come this far, listening with your heart open and your mind still, then you already know the truth, not as an idea, but as a felt experience. This life, your life, is not ordinary. It is sacred, not because of what you have, or what you've achieved, but because of what it means. You were not born human by accident. You did not arrive at this moment by luck. You came here through effort, lifetimes of effort. Through intentions you once carried. Through choices you once made. And now, you're here, on the edge of something profound, the choice to wake up fully. In the ancient sutras, the Buddha often spoke of the human body as a vessel, not permanent. Not perfect, but uniquely capable of reaching the other shore. Just as a well-built ship can cross stormy seas, your human birth gives you the tools to cross the ocean of samsara. But the ship must be steered. It must be cared for. And it must be used before the waves take it back. So we find ourselves now at a crossroads. You've heard the teachings. You've reflected on their meaning. You've seen how precious this life is, not only rare in the cosmic sense, but rare in the inner sense. Rare because you're conscious, because you're willing to look inward, because you care. That alone already sets you apart. In a world of distraction, you've chosen to pause. In a world of urgency, you've chosen stillness. In a world that celebrates noise, you've chosen to listen to something quieter, more ancient, more true. And now, the next step is practice. Not practice as performance, not practice as duty, but practice as love, a way of honoring the gift you've been given. That practice can take many forms. For some, it begins in the breath. A single inhale, a single exhale, the rhythm of life itself, reminding you that you are alive, that you are here. For others, it's in stillness, sitting quietly, not trying to achieve anything, but simply being, letting the dust settle, letting the mind reveal itself. For others still, it's in service, in acts of kindness, in listening to someone who's grieving, in forgiving what once seemed unforgivable. Whatever form your practice takes, it begins with a single intention: to be fully present, to live as if each moment matters, because it does, to speak as if your words carry weight, because they do, to move through this world as if every being you meet is a reflection of yourself, because they are. When you live like this, you begin to walk the path not as an idea, but as a reality. You feel it in your body. You see it in your relationships. You notice it in the way suffering no longer swallows you, and joy no longer fools you. You begin to abide in something deeper than emotion, deeper than thought. You begin to rest in truth. And the truth is this: you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your possessions, your roles, or your fears. You are the awareness that sees all of these come and go. That awareness is what was reborn. And that awareness is what can be freed. But it takes commitment, not to an external standard, but to your own awakening. Not to someone else's version of enlightenment, but to the living truth unfolding inside you now. That commitment doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be quiet, even invisible, a private vow, whispered in your own heart. May I not waste this life. May I use it for good. May I walk the path of peace. To walk the path of peace doesn't mean to escape difficulty. It means to meet difficulty without hardening, to face impermanence without fear, to open your heart even when it's been broken. This is the training the Buddha gave us, not in theory, but in practice. He didn't promise that life would be free of pain. He simply showed us how not to be destroyed by it, how to meet it with compassion, with wisdom, with equanimity. And when we do that, something beautiful happens. We begin to transform not just ourselves, but the world around us. Because the world doesn't change through force. It changes through presence, through people who refuse to hate, through people who choose truth over comfort, through people who keep their hearts soft, even when the world feels hard. You can be one of those people. You already are. And in this way, your life becomes more than just your own. It becomes a thread in the great fabric of liberation, a link in the chain of those who have woken up, and those still to come. It becomes a gift not just to your future self, but to the future of all beings. So protect it, nourish it, Return to it. Again and again and again. Each time you choose awareness over habit, you water the seed of awakening. Each time you bow to impermanence instead of resisting it, you align with the truth. Each time you act with compassion instead of anger, you shift the momentum of the world. That is your power. That is your path. And as this talk draws to a close, let it not be an ending, but a beginning. Let this be the moment you make your life a practice. Not tomorrow. Not when it's easier. Now. Start where you are. Start with one breath. Let that breath remind you, I am alive. Let that awareness remind you, this life is rare. Let that remembrance guide you, I will not waste it. And if you fall down, rise gently. If you forget, return kindly. Because the path is not linear. It spirals. It loops. It meanders. But it always leads home, if you keep walking. So walk with intention. Walk with reverence. Walk as if every step matters, because it does. And one day, when this life comes to its natural end, may you look back with a heart that is full. Not from having had everything, but from having lived awake. That is the gift of a karmically rare life. That is the truth the Buddha offered. And that is the invitation now placed gently in your hands. What will you do with it? Let that question stay with you, not as a burden, but as a blessing. Let it guide your choices. Let it shape your days. And most of all, let it lead you inward, again and again, to the place that has never been separate from awakening. Your own heart. Now, let us close not with answers, but with a silence that holds everything. And in that silence, may the Dharma take root. May it bloom in you. And may it carry you home. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If today's reflection touched something deep within you, don't let it pass like just another thought. Let it sink in. Let it guide you back to your breath, to your heart, to what truly matters. Take a quiet moment today to pause, to remember how rare this human life is, and how powerful each choice can be. Live as if each day is a precious opportunity to plant good seeds, to awaken, to love without holding back. And if this teaching has been of value to you, consider sharing it with someone who may be seeking their own path home. May you walk gently, may your heart remain open, and may your journey be filled with wisdom and peace. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.